We're so delighted to welcome a conversation with immigration expert Ali Noorani of the National Immigration Forum, and facilitating the conversation is Samuel Bernal. Samuel is a vice president at Entravision, which owns Radio Tricolor. He is the primary voice of that radio station in our community. He gives his time to many community organizations, including serving on the English in Action Board. Samuel, take it away.
Thank you, Julie. I'd like to start by introducing Ali Noorani, the Executive Director of the National Immigration Forum, a nonpartisan advocacy organization working with faith, law enforcement, and business leaders to promote the value of immigrants and immigration. Ali has appeared on numerous national and local radio and TV news programs, including MSNBC, Fox News, PBS, CNN, and more. He is the author of There Goes the Neighborhood, How Communities Overcome Prejudice and Meet the Challenge of American Immigration, and is host of the Only in America podcast. Good evening, Ali.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, or wherever I am, but it's great to be with you.
Thank you. Before we start, I'd like to let the audience know that if they have questions for Ali, they should put them in the Zoom chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the conversation. Ali, I would like to start asking you, how did you get involved with the National Immigration Forum, and what does it mean to you personally?
Well, I think today is the perfect example of why this work is so incredibly important, not just to myself, but really to the country, because today was a remarkable day for the United States. 700,000 young people were protected from deportation by the Supreme Court. Millions and millions of Americans who come to know, to respect, to admire, to depend on, to love dreamers and DACA recipients are happy. So it's just an incredible day for the United States. So for me, I sent my staff an email earlier this evening, kind of getting through this day of just intensity, and I just said, you know what? I've come to realize how dumb lucky I feel to do this work, and I just have to say that part of that luck that I feel every single day is because every single day we come across organizations like English in Action that are doing such incredible work in communities across the country, and in this case, helping immigrants and refugees in the Roaring Fork Valley reach their fullest potential. So there are just so many things to be grateful for that I could talk for 2 hours just about that.
Yes, it was a surprise, all the news this morning, and it was a good day, and we're happy to be in this day with our event. And Ali, something I admire about you is that you work making coalitions, like, because it's very easy to destroy, but it's hard to build, and I think it has something to do, or it's something similar what you do and what we do in English in Action, that is building bridges. What do you recommend in these times that there is a lot of radicalization? How can we be better neighbors? How can we get to understand each other's better in these times?
I think that's one of our biggest challenges as a country these days is that, how do you sit and how do you listen to what somebody is saying and what it means to them, but ultimately what it means to you. So back in 2011, first of all, the National Immigration Forum has been around since 1982. In our DNA as an organization has always been coalition building. But in 2011, we made this very, very intentional decision that we were going to spend the majority of our resources on the engagement of conservative and moderate faith, law enforcement, and business leaders. And the value proposition that we came up with, I think, was really important because the case that we wanted to make was that whether you hold a Bible, you wear a badge, or you own a business, you want a common sense solution to the immigration system. And what we found is that whether you were a pastor in South Carolina, a business owner in Aspen, in fact, Warren Klug, who was at I think Aspen Square Inn was one of our earliest key partners, or you were in a law enforcement, or you're a police chief or a sheriff, you for us, we realize that it's not about the politics or the policy around immigration, but it's around the values and the culture that different communities and different perspectives bring. So, to answer your question, I think it's really important that as we are working through issues, whether it is around justice for immigrants or racial justice, that we sit and we have the conversations that create the tension and that ultimately we come to understand, okay, where are you coming from? Where am I coming from? Where can we agree? But also, where can we respectfully disagree? And I think if there's anything that's the country's lacking these days is the ability to respectfully disagree.
Yes. Now that you mention racial justice, we are living very intense historical moments, and I would like you to tell us what similarities you find between our brothers with the black community and the immigrant community.
That's a really, really difficult question. And, I got, just like everybody, I'm sure, as part of this event, but all of us across the country, we're all thinking about racial justice and the systemic reforms that are necessary. And I will be the first to say that the challenges and the injustices faced by the Black community are fundamentally different by those that are faced by the immigrant community. And I think we have to respect the struggle that the Black community has taken on for decades, if not hundreds of years. But I think what we can learn, and there's this amazing book written by David Chappell, who's a Christian author, and he makes the case that within the civil rights movement, it wasn't the policy elements, it wasn't the political power that was developed. It was really the ability of whether it was white communities or Black communities to be able to speak to the broader American public through a faith lens and to be able to say, you know what, as a country, we are a mix of cultures, and that through this national identity of being a part of the United States, we can reach a resolution. On civil rights, it's ongoing, and I think today was a very important step forward in terms of justice for immigrants.
Is there a country that you will choose as a role model for immigration, and could it be possible to apply this in America?
I've been thinking about that question a lot, and because I've been thinking quite a bit about global migration. So let me go back to today. So today we are all thinking about this amazing event that happened in the Supreme Court. But I began my day flipping through the Washington Post, and I saw that, or I was on the internet, and I saw that there was a release by the United Nations for this year's number of people forcibly displaced. 79.5 million people have been forcibly displaced. 30 to 34 million of those people are refugees. Out of that, nearly 80 million people who have been forced from their home, how many Madeline Albrights are there? How many Albert Einsteins? Pick your amazing person. So when you ask the question of what is the best role model for immigration, I still believe that it's the United States, and we're certainly going through a challenging moment when it comes to immigration policy. But I have to believe that we as a nation remain the beacon of hope for immigrants and refugees around the world. And we've got to make sure that our immigration system is in a position to live up to the hope that beacon provides.
You have mentioned before that there are like three big anxieties when people talk about immigration. One is the cultural, another the economy, and the security. In English in Action, we work especially in the first one, the cultural. How important do you think it is to work in the cultural side for society to understand immigration better?
There's nothing more important. I'll be totally honest with you. Nothing more important. In fact, we have done research at the end of last year. We just are coming out later this summer with a massive research study. And time again, what is shown in this research is that for conservatives in particular, the people that we need to help understand why these anxieties are actually opportunities, to be able to talk to them about how immigrants are learning English and becoming Americans, how through a person's faith that welcoming the stranger is more than words in print. It is actually how so many people live their lives. The cultural conversation opens the door to the facts that are around, the economic case or the security case. But I have to say that helping immigrants learn English and then being able to tell the broader public about how that is done and what happens as a result for all of us I honestly, I don't think there's anything more important that we should be doing as a movement these days other than talking to these cultural issues.
Right now, we are all facing the COVID-19 pandemic, and the immigrant community faces deeper challenges when it comes to COVID-19, because uh, the work we do, we have more stress, less time to rest, and we are essential workers, and we're working in the production of food or healthcare, uh, even construction. And what do you think COVID-19 has teach us as a community?
Well, I think COVID-19 has taught the immigrant community so much, but I think, frankly, more importantly, it has taught the rest of the country so much about the immigrant community. So earlier, at the beginning of this awful pandemic, we were able to team up with a coalition that came to be known as All of Us, and the website is allofuscare.com. And it's this amazing coalition because you have, the immigration advocacy organizations like the National Immigration Forum, you have the Southern Baptist Convention, you have the Catholic Conference of Bishops, you have the National Urban League, you have the NAACP, you have Unidos, and all these organizations collectively are saying all of us, regardless of where we were born, are part of the response to COVID-19. 29,000 DACA recipients are on the front lines of healthcare. 75% of farm workers are immigrants, 40% of food packers. And to your point, most of us who are part of this event, with the exception of the media, we can work from home, right? We don't have to go to a meeting. We don't have to go to an event necessarily. The immigrant community, by and large, doesn't have that luxury, whether they're on the front lines of the response to COVID-19 or, part of, critical parts of the economy and manufacturing or otherwise. So I think the American public has truly come to appreciate to a greater degree the contributions of immigrants and why they are so critical to our health and safety.
What is the current status of immigration in the United States? Is it harder for undocumented immigrants to come to the United States than to documented, or is there a certain type of immigrants that have it harder to come to the United States?
How much time do we have? We're I look, we're a nonpartisan organization. We do a lot of work with conservatives, Republicans, independents, Democrats. But we also feel like we have a responsibility to speak the truth. And the truth is that it is harder to come to the United States than ever before. From a legal immigration perspective, the number of refugees that we're gonna resettle this year has been slashed to, I believe, 15,000. The president at the beginning of early on in the COVID-19 pandemic, he issued a proclamation to suspend certain types of legal immigration. In fact, over the course of the pandemic, the administration has issued 46 orders to limit legal immigration. Now, let me be clear. Some of those orders or changes have been appropriate for public health reasons. But of those 46, more than half of them have no end date. So, we've got a long hill to climb here because, legal immigration piece by piece has been curtailed. It is, the border enforcement measures. I mean, the asylum system, in essence, has been ended and during the pandemic, and it was been slow to a trickle before the pandemic. So, in the years ahead, whether it's a second term of the Trump administration or another president, we just have a lot of work to do. And that's why I think that the coalition building and the work that English in Action does is so critically important.
If there was an action that you would recommend our audience to do right now to help the immigrant community, what would it be?
Well, I mean, I think one thing is, given today's tremendous decision coming out of the Supreme Court, I think that Republicans and Democrats in Congress need to work together to move forward on a permanent solution for Dreamers. And look, Michael Bennet, the Democratic senator in Colorado, is very, very positive on these issues, especially with regards to Dreamers. So is Cory Gardner. So I think, if there's an advocacy ask that I would make is to pick up the phone, call up Cory Gardner, call up Michael Bennet, and say, you two need to work together to get a bill to the United States Senate that protects dreamers. I think that would heal some of the divisions in the country, that would protect hundreds of thousands of immigrants who are contributing, and it would help millions and millions of Americans continue to better understand the value of immigrants and immigration to the U.S.
Yes, and maybe also helping and donating to organizations like English in Action too. That really makes a difference. I see it here in our community how important it is to have an organization like this, and all the help to the immigrants. They feel it more like a place that they will learn some English. It's almost like a home, like a second home for them too. And let's see, we have some questions from the audience. We have one from Fidel Duke. Do you want to rethink that strategy for focus on faith, police, and business?
Do you want to rethink it?
Do you want to rethink that strategy?
That's a good question. In fact, maybe he was in my board meeting last week because we're actually having that conversation. Okay, what's the important way to be doing coalition building? So where we landed, and I'm certainly there personally, is that I think this type of coalition building is going to be more and more important moving forward. Because remember, in order to pass a law in Congress, particularly the Senate, you need 60 senators. So that means that even if the Democrats take over the Senate, you're still going to need Republicans. And so there's a political reason to do it, but I also think there's a cultural reason to do this work, is that by 2040, 70% of the population is going to live in 15 states. That means 30% of the population in the United States is going to live in 35 states. And these are going to be states with fewer people, with fewer immigrants. So that means that every single policy debate that we have in Washington, D.C. is going to run right into a cultural clash. So we've got to get ahead of that. And I think that coalition building across constituencies and across partisan lines is incredibly important.
We have a last question by our director, Lara Bulow. And what can you tell a story about a community or individuals finding unexpected common ground around immigration?
That's a great question. So first of all, I just really want to commend Lara's leadership. It's just an incredible organization. I'm so thrilled to be with everybody this evening. So that was also my opportunity to kind of think through an example for you. So I would point to actually something that's going to happen. It's happened this week. Is that in South Carolina this week, Southern Baptist churches received thousands of masks made by refugees who are living in a refugee camp in Lesbos, Greece. And something special is happening in South Carolina right now because these congregants are seeing that refugees in Greece, who are part of the 79.5 million people who have been forcibly displaced, they have the opportunity to learn about the humanity of that refugee and what that refugee is doing for the safety and the health of that congregant. And that's just a really, really special thing.
Ali, thank you so much. We are so grateful for the time you generously spent with us this evening. And now I would like to turn over to Julie to close out the evening.